Welcome to Leadership Talks with your host, Dr. Kate Vawter. In each episode, Kate speaks with successful leaders across industries, real people, and local leaders. Each of her conversations explore different leadership styles, how people achieve unbelievable success, overcoming challenges, and how to become the best in the world. You can find this show at www.ascentsolutions.net and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now here's the host of Leadership Talk, Dr. Kate Vawter.
Hello, welcome. I am so happy to have a special guest today, Alex McEntire, who is the owner and chief donut officer at Chin Up Donuts. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I'm so pumped. Full transparency, I went to Chin Up this morning, the Scottsdale location, and it was so hard to choose a donut. So I chose 3. I was like, well, why stick to one when I can take home 3?
There you go.
So the first donut that I partook in was the birthday suit, because rainbow sprinkles are my favorite.
Yeah, can't go wrong with sprinkles.
No, so welcome. I'm super excited to hear the story of is preferred name Chin Up Donuts, just Chin Up? Like what's the brand?
So many different ones. I usually just call it Chin Up, but Chin Up Donuts and coffee. There's different iterations depending on what mood I'm in, I guess. But
I just like to ask to use the right name. So Alex, I want to hear about the journey of like there was life before Chin Up and life with Chin Up. So what was the before? What was your career trajectory before you were a business owner?
Yeah. So I studied design management in school. So it was kind of a hybrid interdisciplinary major. So I studied design, business, and communications, kind of mixed all 3 things that I enjoyed. And out of college, I got recruited by Amazon, actually, at their headquarters up in Seattle. So after graduation, I moved up to Seattle to do branding and marketing for one of their recruitment teams. So their high volume hiring team. So I did everything from copywriting, graphic design. I was doing newspaper ads, so some like ad buying, media buying, but mostly in that like branding, marketing space for Amazon. And I started on a team. There was just 12 of us. So it was very like startup-y, even though we were at Amazon. We were very kind of like scrappy, which was fun. And then grew by the time I was there about 6.5, almost 7 years. And I stayed on the same team. And that team was about 500 people. So we'd grown really rapidly. So kind of saw an evolution and growth within that team. And yeah, so I was doing, and I got more and more refined into my role, mostly creative, mostly copywriting, things like that. And yeah, I loved it. I worked with some of my best friends I met at Amazon. I know there's different perspectives on working at Amazon in the corporate world, but I loved it and worked with a lot of my friends, and just I got to be creative every day in my role there. So
yeah, that's awesome. So how did the donut progress of like, was there a moment? Did you travel and have a delicious donut and we're like, this is my life's work? Like how did that spark happen from traditional career at a traditional employer to like, actually, you know what? I'm out. I'm going to make donuts now.
Yeah. I think travel was part of it. I did quite a bit of international travel. I mean, even back to college days, I did study abroad, and then I made it a point to take at least one international trip a year. So to Thailand, to Vietnam, I've done most of Europe. So I got to travel kind of all over, and I've just always loved food. So wherever I go, just trying whatever the local food is and just experimenting with food. And then being in Seattle, it's such a great like eating and drinking city. There's so many good local spots. I mean, growing up in Arizona, and I love the Valley, but I grew up eating like Chili's every weekend. Like that was our go-to spot. So it's very much like Arizona and Phoenix coming up in the food scene. So yeah, I just had a love and passion for food, I think, and just loved to cook and bake, always just growing up and out of college. And then, yeah, I think Seattle really inspired me because they had a lot of like hyper local bakeries and ice cream shops. And like, you didn't go to Cold Stone or Baskin Robbins, you went to Molly Moon's, like, and they had really cool eccentric flavors and it was just really local and everyone loved it. And I was like, I want Arizona or like Phoenix to have that like local spot. And being from Arizona, moving to Seattle, I needed a hobby because it was raining all the time. So cooking was it, baking was it. I don't know why I stumbled upon trying to make donuts. It's a harder thing to make when you're like boiling a pot of like oil on your apartment stove. But yeah, I got a cookbook of different donut recipes and just worked my way through them. And I loved donuts because they don't have to be inherently super sweet. They don't have to just be like pink with sprinkles, like the Homer Simpson donut. You can have a lot of flavor with them. Like it's fried dough. You can do salty stuff, spicy stuff, savory, all kinds of different combos. And I didn't really see that being done in the donut space. I know there's some really cool shops like Salt and Straw that's doing that with ice cream. And I went there on Thanksgiving and they have a salted caramel turkey skin and a sweet potato pie ice cream and like all these crazy flavors. I'm like, I could do that, but with donuts and do really eccentric, unique flavors and create something that are really local and fun. And so, yeah, I was just bringing them to coworkers. And so what started as just kind of like a side hustle hobby of making donuts and playing around with how crazy I could get with the flavors on donuts. That's kind of when the wheels were turning. It's like my hobby in Seattle when it was raining and bringing some fun stuff to coworkers. So.
How did you make the jump of taking donuts to coworkers? Now you're a business owner with multiple brick and mortar locations. So did you start with like, sometimes people be like, a business plan flew out of my fingers or like a lease showed up in my inbox. Like what were the steps between the making of the donuts and this creative idea to like actually starting a business?
Yeah. I think it was a mix of things. Being a marketing and branding, like creative background, my first thing is like, I want a brand name. So like coming up with the name of the business. And then of course the logo, like that's the most fun. It's like, okay, I want to design a logo and a website. So all the creative things that I'm like, okay, I want to just kind of for fun because I love designing and like doing logos. And so I had the design and the logo and the website all made. And I'm like, well, I could like actually maybe do this. Do I want to do this? I'm like, I never thought I would own my own business. My parents did it. Just like, I was like, nope, I want the security of a big corporate life. And then, yeah, after 7 years at Amazon and like just doing it on the side. And then I'm like, well, I have a logo. I have an LLC. I opened a bank account. It was like baby steps over my 7 years at Amazon. I was like, I had it for 3 or 4 years before I opened the brick and mortar. So it was just like very small steps. And then it finally was like the tipping point of like, you know what? I should do this and try it. And like the worst thing that could happen is like I lose some money and Amazon will always be there or probably always be there. Yeah. Or something similar, having Amazon on my resume. I thought of it, I was like, this will just be such a cool experience. I'll learn so much. And I have for sure. But I think it was just that tipping point of like, what do I have to lose kind of? And being in Seattle, I wanted to come back to Arizona and I wanted Arizona to have this really cool, local, unique spot. So I think it was a handful of things. I quit Amazon. And then that was the end of 2019. So I moved back to Arizona, the beginning of 2020 to start it all. So it was interesting timing for sure. But yeah, it was just like a one-day decision. I had a coffee date with a friend and she's like, you should just do it. And I was like, okay. And I like literally had to do it that day because it was very overwhelming, but put in my notice and then, yeah, took the leap from there.
So let me get this straight. On the day that your friend was like, you should just do it, you already had your brand built, you already had your website built, you'd already filed for an LLC, and you'd already opened a bank account. And even though you'd done all of those things, you still didn't quite feel like, yep, I'm going to do it until your friend was like, just do it.
Yeah. And I was like even doing like pop-ups and farmers markets. I would wake up at like 3 a.m. and sell donuts before my office job. So I was already kind of running a business before I had my like brick and mortar. So I kind of like in my mind proven the concept like, hey, people are willing to buy these. So that was I was doing that for about a year or so, doing pop-ups in little markets, and it was very small scale, but I'd like proof of concept at least of that.
Yeah. Well, I need to. Yeah, absolutely. Proof of concept, a little bit of scalability of like, what's it like to make this many donuts all the time? And then of pop-up land, of all the schlepping of all the stuff, and like don't have the brick and mortar cost, but also then have to haul everything around all the time. Okay. That makes a little more sense. So you were a business owner, you just weren't a brick and mortar business owner, and then you made the jump to do it full time. Before you were full time, when you that year where you were, living in both spaces, how much time in your week was committed to chin up?
Yeah, I think it definitely depended on the week. Some days I would get an order for like a dozen or two. And so I'd spend 3 or 4 hours making donuts. I mean, so much of my mental capacity, I feel like, was spent on it, like either working on the website or writing the business plan. But then I got a couple great like larger corporate orders. So like Microsoft or Nordstrom would order like 100 or 200 donuts for their employees. And so then I would spend all day on Sunday prepping and then wake up Monday at 1 a.m. to make them all before I had to go into my desk job. And so some days it was like 20 hours and some weeks it was like 3 hours. So it kind of depended on the week and what orders I had. Which was nice because if I don't have the brick and mortar, it wasn't like a daily commitment. I could kind of gauge how much time I wanted to spend on it. But yeah, a lot of the time wasn't necessarily on the orders and making them. It was kind of behind the scenes, like, okay, working with the business plan. I was meeting with other coffee shop and donut shop owners to see like, hey, how many do you sell in today? What could I expect for my projections? All of that kind of behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, like the successful businesswoman you are. So was that my mental image as you were telling that story was that you were in your cute little Seattle apartment making 200 donuts in your kitchen? Is that what it really was?
In the early days it was. And then the last like 6 months, maybe a year, I had a commercial kitchen space that I rented. And so paid rent in a shared kitchen space. So there was another bakery or bagel place and stuff. So I had a larger kitchen space to work with, thankfully.
Yeah, that's so neat. So then how did moving your market from Seattle to Arizona and the Phoenix area, what was that like? How did you navigate that?
Yeah, that was challenging because I felt like, I mean, even if it was like my 500 Instagram followers, I'm like, oh, I worked so hard to build this up in Seattle.
Yeah.
And then to have to leave it and kind of start from scratch here. Thankfully, I'm from Arizona. I went to college in Arizona. I have so many family and a pretty good network here already. So I think just telling everyone I was moving back, I already had a really supportive network. And then just after doing a few pop-ups here, it was just like they see the brand name, they follow you. And so it kind of picked up a lot quicker here. And I was dedicated to it full time. Wasn't kind of doing it on the side with Amazon. So it was challenging, but I think I'm like, well, now I'm dedicated to this. Like this is all I have. So I've got to put it all into it. And so I was able to kind of build a network a little bit more quickly. And it was kind of during COVID time. And so I was doing deliveries. So people were like, oh, like I can't go into a donut shop, but she's making them and she'll drop them off on my doorstep. So kind of tweaked my business model in the midst of COVID when I was just first moving to Arizona. And that kind of worked out well too.
So right now you've got 3 locations. Is that right?
Just 2 for now.
Just 2 for now. Okay. Did you start with one and then add a second? Okay. What was that timeline and transition like?
Yes, I opened my first shop here in North Scottsdale, November of 2020. So I had moved back to Arizona pretty much January of 2020. I was doing pop-ups and farmers markets, working out of a shared kitchen again there as I was kind of looking at where I wanted real estate wise and location wise, and toured a bunch of different spots. And being new back to the Valley, figuring out what part of town. I'm from the West Valley. I've obviously went to school in Tempe. So just figuring out where I want to be within the Valley, as well as figuring out kind of the build out and what I want to put into construction. So there are a lot of different aspects that went into that. And I found a space that used to be a Subway of all places, but it was already a food establishment. So it had the plumbing and the sinks. I just kind of had to bring my equipment and do the fun aesthetic part of painting and furniture and all of that. So I think I first saw the space in like September. I signed a lease in October and we were open by the end of November. So it all happened pretty quickly once the wheels started moving. So
that's super fast in real estate land. Did you have, so I know do you mind if we talk a little bit about like brick and mortar and a realtor and how you looked at spaces? And because I think of this transition of like starting in rental, commercial, shared kitchen, I'm hearing it from other folks too. And then there's this jump to brick and mortar. And what, did you find a realtor? Were you just like walking around downtown and found a for rent sign? Or what's the process of finding your business home?
Yeah. One of my best friends like brother worked at CBRE, one of the big real estate companies, and he did like warehousing. He's like, well, I have a friend that I know that works in like retail real estate, so you can work with him. So I was introduced to this guy. He was really helpful, and it was just, hopping in the car with him, and he would just take me. I literally drove all the way out to like way out in Gilbert. I did some in the West Valley. I looked in Central Phoenix. So I was kind of all over the place looking at places. My thing, since we were in the middle of COVID and construction, there were so many different delays. I wanted something a little bit more turnkey. I was like, I quit Amazon almost a year ago. I'm ready to start making money and selling donuts. So that was a big priority when looking at a potential space. What does the build out look like? I wanted it very simple and quick so I could start selling donuts and making donuts. So that was a big part of it. And then looking at my product. So, I mean, I have a higher end product, like it's a $3.50 donut. It's not like an 89-cent Bosa donut. So North Scottsdale, I knew this demographic wasn't going to be like sticker shock necessarily to this area. So that was part of the decision, and looking like, okay, probably the Scottsdale area, they'll be a little bit more receptive for a higher end donut or pastry product. So that was kind of the thought behind that. So it was turnkey. It was in a good area that I was looking at already. And so those were aspects. And I mean, I feel like even just since opening this shop, I've learned so much about location and looking at foot traffic versus what are your neighbors. So I've built a following, and I've become much more of a destination, and I'm not getting any walking traffic, hardly. It's like maybe people going to lunch next door at Picasso's, but I'd say 90% of people that come in have searched donuts or coffee like on Yelp or on Google Maps, and that's how they found me. And so it's a very slow grow at this spot. Even though I'm in a huge shopping center, I've got Nordstrom Rack and Trader Joe's and all this, I get very much lost because I'm a smaller business. So I feel like I don't know if this would have been my choice knowing what I know now, but now I've built a following and the neighborhood all knows about me. It's taken almost 3 years though to get to this point.
Yeah.
So that's why I was looking at locations like number 2. I was like, okay, I want walking traffic. what are my next door neighbors? Because I was next to a Fry's or a Safeway when people are in and out all day. Oh, donuts. Okay, I'll go in there. That's much more because I have a product that's more impulse versus people that are just going to like search out jewelry repair or something like that's more like, okay, not as necessarily as impulsive as donuts and coffee.
Yeah. Super. Thank you. That's helpful. So for your path, you found an expert in the rental industry and then prioritized the turnkey part of and we're cool with that prioritization, which did that have, what kind of, we don't have to talk like dollars and cents, but as when you prioritized turnkey, was that like a small, medium, large financial implication, or did it all kind of balance out of I don't know what rent is like in a business space with a kitchen?
Yeah. And I feel like clueless as well. I was like, I don't know what normal. I'd kind of looked in Seattle at spaces. And I mean, I saw like comparable spots in around the valley here. So kind of get an idea, and to be in this good of an area, I was willing to pay a few dollars more a square foot to be in this type of area, for sure. But then looking at what would the construction cost be if I did get a gray shell, they call it, just you get 4 walls, you're going to build the rest. What are construction costs going to look like? And what is that? Okay, what am I willing to spend dollar-wise in rent if that's already done for me? And I had to prioritize the time, and especially because I was opening during COVID and construction was just like crazy at that time. I would have ended up spending a lot more, I think, in construction anyway. So I'm like, just give it to me ready to go, and I'll pay the extra few $100s a month and rent.
Yeah. So did you, as a math person, were you like pen on napkin doing some back of the napkin math? Did you have an Excel file? What was your process to be able to make the decision of okay, this is my priority, and I know that that's going to have a financial result to it. So how did you do that math? What was your process like?
Yeah, I had a projections document, and I can't remember if it was either from an entrepreneurship class at ASU years and years ago, or it was from SCORE, which is like a small business group here in Phoenix that I met with. I can't remember, but I had this Excel doc where you plugged in rent, you plugged in payroll, you plugged in all the quantities and kind of spit out numbers for you. So as I figured out, okay, calculate, this is what monthly rent would be like, I plugged it in there. Okay, am I losing money? Am I gaining money? How many donuts do I need to make? So I had this kind of Excel file that was nice to kind of play around with, and noting that this was based off projections from not thin air. I mean, I'd talk to people in Seattle, but like I was way off of projections. I was doing maybe 1/10 of what I had projected. So you can do it all the math you want and work all the magic numbers, but you never know how many donuts you're going to sell or how many things you're going to sell in a day. So but it was an Excel doc that I was plugging the numbers into.
Okay. Thanks for letting me be nosy about numbers. So let me transition to the people side of business. 2 locations, 2 rents. How many employees do you have right now, ish?
Yeah, I have about 8 employees right now.
Part-time, full-time?
Mostly part-time. I have 3 full-time.
Okay. How are you managing benefits, payroll? Like who's clicking the buttons to get people paid?
Yeah, that's me. I'm doing payroll.
Okay.
It's all through our point of sale. So it's called Toast. It's a restaurant point of sale system, but they incorporate the payroll. I do benefits. I have a broker that helped me with the benefits and doing those for my full-time employees. So yeah, it's just been a lot of Googling the answers to a lot of like the HR side of things, because now I'm in charge of HR and payroll and accounting and all the back end stuff of that, people management.
How did you find your benefits broker?
I had, and I'm a part of a wonderful group in the Valley called The Foundress, and it's female entrepreneurs and leaders. And they had a presenter, and she's a not financial analyst, but like she worked with you on your finances. And so I hired her to be kind of my interim CFO, if you will, for the year. And so she got me set up with my life insurance, moving a lot of the stuff from Amazon into my business now, set me up with like disability coverage and all the like coverage for my business and like 401k for my full-time employees. So she kind of set me up with a lot of those things. And then she referred me to this broker because I was with it's called Gusto, a former payroll provider. They did small group plans through that. And with the transition to my new point of sale system, they didn't offer benefits. So I was like, okay, I got to do something. And I got referred to from that financial planner.
Yeah. How do you balance both being chief donut officer and being CMO and CEO and CHRO? Like it's a lot of hats to wear. So do you block off your time? What is that like?
I want to get better at blocking off time because I am also like lead barista. I'm working pretty much full time in the shop. Okay. So I think that's my challenge, is dedicating so much of my time to the front of house. And I'm making coffees and donuts, and I'm working 8 hours a day in the shop working with customers. And I don't give myself enough time in the office back here working on my computer and doing all that. So it's when it's slow in the afternoon as I pull my laptop up like behind the coffee bar and like try and do it. But I try and like Mondays are my short day. I'm done by noon. And so that's like, I'm usually doing payroll on Mondays or something related to that. Like it's kind of like my Monday finance day. So I try and have days where I know, okay, I'm going to get that because payroll is due on Tuesday. So Monday I'm focused on that. So I try and carve out like some kind of schedule that I know when stuff needs to be done by, and I work out. Otherwise, it's just kind of carving out time whenever I can, whenever a few minutes in the shop. So,
yeah. Well, let's take a brief pause, hear from our sponsors, and then when we come back, I want to learn more about some of the challenges and what you've learned.
Great.
Leadership Talks is proudly sponsored by Ascent Solutions, where we believe people are the best investment. Do you manage a team or own your own business? Research shows that when employees feel invested in and feel a sense of connection with the people they work with, they are more productive and more likely to stay with their current employer. At Ascent Solutions, we offer services including leadership coaching, professional development workshops, and brand development consulting, all of which are available in person or online. It is always the right time to invest in yourself and in your team. Visit us at ascentsolutions.net to schedule a complimentary consultation today.
Welcome back. All right, Alex, I would love to know what some of the challenges have been, of like maybe some of the small challenges and some of the like big, hairy, woolly mammoth kind of challenges.
Yeah. It's hard. I feel like there's so many different like buckets of categories. I mean, one is the financial thing. Like, you're taking a financial risk when you go into business for yourself. To my earlier point, talking about projections of like how much I had projected, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I was nowhere near hitting those numbers. I'm like, that changes everything of me thinking I'm going to make money. I took out an SBA loan, but I didn't give myself a lot of wiggle room because I didn't want to take on a ton of debt for the business.
Yeah.
And so you learn these things like, no, you should take out a lot more than you need to have that safety net. And I didn't. So I just had to work to kind of catch up, and I made it work. And I'm so grateful for that. But I think just managing the finances, okay, APS, I just had a $1,200 APS bill where like you get these giant like electric bills. Like, okay, well, that's $1,000 more than it is in December. So you have to kind of piece in, okay, but we just had this huge catering order. We had our biggest catering order ever this morning, which is great. So I can pencil that in. I think for me, being like a creative marketing person, the finances has been a challenge of like trying to get my numbers straight. So I know I'm going to be able to pay rent and pay my employees, and figuring out that aspect. And when do I know if I'm going to need to take a loan to get through the rest of the year or a slow summer? And just that stress of the finances, I think has been a really big challenge for me. And then the people and hiring, being in the retail food space part-time, especially with employees. You hire people and they're so great and I love them and we get them trained, and after a month and they just never call or never show up again. So it's like the turnover for part-time like restaurant retail workers has been a challenge with that, and finding really good people. And I'm in a really great space right now with my team. I've had a few people that have been with me. My chef has been with me since the beginning, so almost 3 years. I've had a girl be a year and a half. So if you find people and treat them well, that has worked out really well, and just creating a really strong team. I'm in a really good spot right now, but sometimes there'll be a few months where it's just like, oh my gosh, I've hired 6 people and I've had one that's stuck around. So I think the people aspect has been a challenge as well.
Totally. I've been hearing from clients about the ghosting of like hiring people, or even like in the recruitment process of some like folks will be like, yep, I'll be there for an interview. See you then. And then they just no call, no show their interview, which I still haven't really been able to wrap my head around of like, that's just not like, that's not the space you and I grew up in. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand.
It literally happened twice last week. I had 2 people, just not even, no text, no call. I'm like, just say I'm no longer interested. Even if it's a text, like anything, just let me know. Why do you just leave me hanging? But yeah, I guess it's become so normalized. It's just like ghosting when you're dating and ghosting employees. But
and it really, like, I don't want to make this about me, but it grinds my gears of like, we're a small business, and committing that time to spend with a potential employee of like, hey, we're going to spend this quality time together and I'm going to give you an hour-ish of my time. And then when people just don't show up, it's so bad for their personal brand of like, that doesn't speak well of them or anyone around them when people do that. So I know it's a thing. And to any of our listeners, please hear us that it is painful and uncomfortable for those of us who have offered you an interview. And then when you don't show up, that is basically dollars lost for us because we committed that time to spend on you. So do us the favor and don't ghost us, and like shoot the text of like, even if it's just like NVM, never mind me. That's fine. I would take a 3-letter text over being ghosted for an interview. Like, it's not cool. Don't do it. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. So the like managing finances, managing people, you mentioned you got your biggest catering order ever this morning. Can we talk about that? How did that sale come to be?
Yeah, I have a little like catering intake form on my website. And so whether you're looking to do a wedding or if it's a corporate catering, and it's a pretty large company, they were like based out of California, but it was a return to office. So everyone's coming back into office, but today was their first day back. So they need like a sweet treat. So they, submitted the intake form and I sent them pricing. There's kind of the back and forth. And then, we solidified the time. They did the donut wall. So we rented the donut wall and had that all set up. And so, so it's through our website that they found us. I'm not sure exactly if they just did best donuts in Phoenix, little Google search and found us, or how, but that came through our website. And Yeah, we were up. My chef was here at midnight. I was here at 2 a.m. My other chef was here at 2:30. So early morning when it's a 7 a.m. start time, but it's worth
Yeah,
it.
that is early. And it's such great exposure. And I've got a client I'm thinking of who's been talking about ordering sweet treats. So if there was somebody who wanted to do a catering order, can you do custom or like semi-custom recipe for what they need?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do fun like letter donuts. Today we spelled out the company's name. We'll do minis. We have full-size ones. We'll do custom glaze color. We've done them like in the company's like branding, either custom sprinkles, custom. We worked with another like a food supplier. They made like cereals. So they provided the cereals that we put on top. So we've done a lot of cool stuff, which is I love doing. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Making note to self to do that intro later. So there's the day-to-day challenges. What do you think the next big, like what's next in the Chin Up Donuts vision or plan?
yeah, I have a really great consultant I've been working with to set like 3-year, 5-year goals, set my North Star, because I feel like it's hard, especially in this with a brick and mortar shop. It is so day to day, hour to hour. I'm just trying to make enough donuts today and make more tomorrow, and make sure we have enough flour and butter to get us through. So it's nice to have this person to meet with and like really get me setting goals and thinking bigger than just the day to day. And so I want to continue to expand. This last expansion into my second shop has been really challenging for me. It's been really tough to go from 1 to 2. I think I was overly eager to get into a second location, and I probably could have stood another year in this first shop before I expanded, but the location was there and I really wanted to be in Old Town Scottsdale, and it's awesome. Yeah. And I just opened right before summer hit, and it's been a grueling hot summer here. And so it's been very
record-breakingly terrible.
Yes. And I've heard from my neighbor businesses that it's been one of the slowest summers since like the 2008 recession. So I'm like, oh, well, I opened at a horrible time. So that's part of it. It's like, you can't really predict that kind of thing. But I just think of like standardizing things, putting SOPs in place, even like as far as the build out and construction of building a new place. There's a lot that I don't think I was prepared for. I'm like, well, we'll make more donuts. We'll deliver them every morning there. And it was a lot more challenging than I prepared for. And so I think now, like I have in my first shop, I've learned so much about expansion and opening. So I do still want to open more. I think I just need to give myself a little bit more time in preparation. And so, yes, I would like 3, 4, 5 locations throughout the valley here, maybe going into like Austin and Palm Springs and some other cool cities. So I want to continue to grow. I just know there's a lot of learning to happen between now and then, but that's what goals are for. Working.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think I'm going to sing your praises a bit, and that you totally know what you're doing. Like, you have the business experience, you've supported other businesses, you dreamed up and created a brand for fun. Like that's, yes, this business is on its way to being massively successful. Because it's different, and it's the right to me, it's the right amount of different and special. And like, yeah, maybe my holiday gift to my clients will be donuts, because why the heck not? That's on brand for me. So I'm excited about it. And what I have heard from other food industry folks is like it takes that 3rd, 4th, 5th location to really start to be profitable, because the margins are just smaller, because it's a donut, not a car. But it takes time and practice. So when I'm seeing that you are particularly resilient if there's these challenges and you figure it out. So what advice could you give to somebody in a similar space, in particular as it relates to resilience and problem solving? Because I think you probably have a unique perspective on that.
Yeah. First piece of advice, talk to as many people as you can, other business owners, especially going into a business like that, whether it's another coffee shop owner or bakery shop owner. Like that was helpful for me. And I talked to maybe 4 or 5, but like I wish I talked to a dozen, and like in different areas and different parts of their business. Most of them were very experienced or very like aged businesses. I didn't talk to someone in their first 1 or 2 years. So I would say like talk to as many people as you can when you're first starting off, like to get an idea of projections and those numbers and figures and what to expect. And then just surround yourself with like a team of people, whether that's employee team or like I came back to Arizona because my family's here and I knew I was going to have a roof over my head no matter what happened with this business. I wasn't going to be without that. So I think that was huge. Having my team was my family. My twin sister, she was a barista for like 8 years at Cartel. So she was like my stand-in to come help whenever an employee didn't show up. And I have another sister and mom and parents and grandparents. My grandpa's loading stuff for catering orders. Like I've had such an amazing team. So whether that's people that you hire or it's your family or it's really close friends, finding a team that's going to be there. Because there have been so many days where I'm just like at rock bottom crying. Like even if it's someone to answer the phone when I'm in tears, I'm like, I'm just so over it. I can't do it anymore. And like to pick me back up and like, you did this for a reason. It's going to be worth it. Have those people that will answer that call, whether you're in tears or you need advice or you need, hey, can you come work for the shop because so-and-so called out today? Find a team that's going to be there and be that resources, because this is really, really hard. It's really awesome and really exciting and very rewarding, but it can also be really, really hard. So preparing for that and just having a team and a support system around you that's going to be there for you to kind of pick you back up when you need that.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned much earlier in the show a group that you're a part of locally. Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, it's called The Foundress, and there's monthly in-person meetings, and there's smaller group meetings called mastermind meetings. And it's all types of female founders, entrepreneurs, leaders, and all kinds of different roles and careers. And the larger meetings are like at a hotel and you go and there's breakfast and there's a presentation, either there's a different topic, financial planning, or if it's about marketing or whatever the topic is. And then the masterminds, you're in a small group, about 5 or 6. Those are super valuable because that's when you dive into your numbers or what your challenge is. And so that's been a really great group to also create a support system of other people that's not my family, but that know what it's like to own their own business and go through those challenges. So it's an awesome group.
Yeah, the sisterhood of female business owners is a really special community, I'm finding.
Yes.
So are there, when you were in Seattle, did you know of other groups there? Because I think your point about having people, and whether that's your biological family, your chosen family, your hired family, what other groups have you experienced in Seattle or here that have helped, be that support or business development, whatever, like groups and feeling like we belong are like the basis of humanness. So what groups have you experienced?
Yeah, I think it's funny thinking about my groups in Seattle, and there was like a Seattle Young Professionals group. It was very corporate just because Seattle is a very corporate city. But even having people that are just in leadership roles and they can relate to having a team and hiring and firing. I had my like running group that I met at the gym, and we'd run like 10 miles every Saturday. Like we'd get together and like chat. You have a lot of time during 10 miles to chat and vent and things like that. And then I had my community, like in my shared kitchen space, like I rented that kitchen space and other like small business owners that were doing farmers markets. And so that community of that like food business. So I had different kind of communities that were, had their own purpose, I guess, for different reasons.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing. As you think about, I'm going to pivot. Being a business owner is challenging for lots of reasons. Today, you very much seem to have your wits about you. What kind of things do you do for yourself to make sure that Alex is taken care of?
Yeah. I think I've gotten, and that's probably what's kept me sane the last 3 years, is really prioritizing, maybe not always time, but I don't know how to put it, but prioritizing like sleep and my mental health. I prioritize working out. I go to the gym 5 days a week, every weekday morning. I didn't because I had to go at 2 a.m., but I'm going to have to go after I close. And that's what I work out because it's like such a good release for me. And that's like how I stay sane is working out. I prioritize that and just prioritizing. Like yesterday, I worked all through Labor Day. I was off at 1 and then I did Margarita Monday with my mom. And I was like, shoot, I need to do payroll, but it's due tomorrow at 3. I can do it. But like prioritizing like margaritas with my mom and having a few hours of fun on Labor Day of just like hanging out and relaxing and not being on my laptop when I know I probably should have and gotten some more emails sent, but at the same time, all the work's here today and I can finish that this afternoon. So it's like finding a good balance of, it would be very easy to work all day, every day, but finding that balance of like, sometimes you just have to do happy hour and put out the emails. But it's been working out and then finding a good balance of just like, you got to still have fun and live your life at the end of the day.
Amen. I heard you should yourself. You said I should have worked more yesterday. And I'm going to say, nuh-uh. Yesterday was about like Margarita Monday with your mom. And that's awesome. And those are the things like, I think those are some of the hardest decisions we make as, in particular, as female business owners of we should ourselves of like, oh, I should really get on my laptop. I should really check my email. Like, what if somebody emailed me yesterday and I haven't replied, or there was an intake form? Like, what if this? What if that? I really should. No, like you should prioritize self and life and living and family and margaritas. And I love that you made that choice yesterday of like, you're right. Emails are going to be there. Anything that was an actual emergency, somebody would have called you about. And so if we're not, if we're not filling our own cup, then our cup's empty. And that shows up in our business and how we treat people, of both clients and employees. So I don't want to should you, but yeah, keep having margaritas with your mom. That's really important. I also am an exerciser. So 5 days a week, love that. What's that routine of like, do you do the same thing at the gym every time? Do you just pick and choose? And these questions I'm asking selfishly because I'm always experimenting with my exercise routines.
Yeah, I'm a morning workout today being an exception, but usually 4:30 or 5 a.m. at the gym. I do a mile on the treadmill and then weight lift. So I have a little app. It's called Active. I've had it for years now. Shout out to them because I love it. But it's just like you choose like arms or you're doing legs or whatever. And it's just like dumbbell led workouts. And they're about 30, 45 minutes long. And they just are like my little cheerleader trainer in my ear pumping me up. And I'm just, at the gym lifting weights on that, using the app, because then I don't have to think about what am I doing, what's my plan. The app tells me and it plays me music. And
that's awesome. What's it called?
Active. AAPTIV, like active but app.
All right. Well, I'm gonna look it up because I also am like to get like just a little bit of warm up and love to lift weights. And I'm a big fan of routines and habit building and like habit loops and building things so that I don't have to think about it. Like I don't want my brain to have to put energy into it. I want it to just be, or mostly be, my body. And so if I so having an app would be helpful because otherwise I'm like, I kind of just want to do the exact same thing, but that's not great for my physical body. I don't want to think about it. Well, thank you so much for sharing. All of this is so great. And you are a successful business owner. You're a successful woman. Like you're awesome and you're doing great. And I know that like you seem so calm, cool, and collected, which is amazing. And you're doing it. You're doing the thing and figuring it out one day at a time.
Well, thank you. A lot of the times it doesn't feel like that, but I appreciate it.
Totally. And you're not alone in that. I think we all feel like that. And as an outsider, I'm going to say like, you're fucking doing it. And this is awesome. Like you're the chief donut officer. That's a real thing because you made it. And
that's the fun part.
And now that you've done it, that opens the door for other women to be able to create the world that they want and the jobs that they want and the lives that they want. And so I'm just so excited for you and for everybody who gets to interact with you and with Chin Up Donuts, because you're creating a space outside the matrix, and that's pretty cool. With that, I'm going to wrap us up. Is there anything else you would like to share with our listeners today?
I don't think so. I mean, I love when people reach out, whether that's like DMing me on Instagram or shooting me an email. Like, if you're thinking about starting something or in the midst of something, the more people I talk to, the more I'm inspired. And if I can in any way inspire anyone else or provide any kind of advice, even though I feel like I'm still learning everything every day, please reach out. My messages, my emails are open for people. I'd like just come and have a donut and coffee and we can sit down and chat about what it's been like, or if you're doing it or starting it. I'm always happy to chat and share whatever stage you're in. I love talking to other people going through the same thing. And if I can pick their brain about how they're doing it too, it's always helpful to have conversations with people in the similar boat or going on the same path. So
yeah, super. Thank you so much, Alex. I want to thank specifically Alex McEntire, owner and chief donut officer at Chin Up Donuts, for being on the show today. I want to thank our awesome production team who are behind the scenes. And I want to thank our listeners. Without you, there is no show. So thanks so much, everybody, for a great show today. You matter, you are enough, and the world is a better place when you let your light shine. Until next time.
You've been tuning into Leadership Talks with your host, Dr. Kate Vawter. You can find this show and learn how to be one of the best in the world at www.ascentsolutions.net and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing the show with others.